Hi and welcome to a Crop and Crate delivered video. I'm designer Jen Gallacher and these videos are hosted by Scrapbook and Cards Today magazine. Today I'm working with the winter kit and I'm going to be using this amazing sketch designed by Becky Fleck to use some of the pattern papers and embellishments and items in the kit to create a layout. So this particular sketch has an outside wood grain look, which inspired me to use this dot wood grain paper with snowflakes on the other side. And you'll see that I have cut out the center. Now I eyeballed it, but you can also use tools to measure it and cut it exactly. What I did then is I cut for the middle pattern paper, which looks like snowflakes on the sketch, but I am using a teal chevron print, snowflakes on one side, and there is a little bit of script on here, and you want to make sure that when you place this on your layout that it faces upwards so that your script isn't upside down. And we're going to add adhesive just to the outside edge of this pattern paper. If you don't mind layering and not worrying about the inside of the pattern paper, you can skip the step to cut out the center. So we want to make sure that we center it on the wood grain paper. You could also layer the paper behind if you prefer, but this is what it looks like on the other side. Then on the sketch, you'll notice that there is a solid piece, and again, you can vary from these sketches as much as you want. This is just how I was inspired. So there's a solid piece of paper here, and I have a white piece of cardstock that will go in the center. Now on the sketch, there is some stitching that goes around the wood grain, but I used some gold thread and I stitched around the inside edge of this white square cardstock. And there will be some gold elements throughout this page. So that is why I used gold stitching. If you don't have a sewing machine, you can do this by hand, just using a gold leaf pen and a ruler. Now the sketch showed a strip of snowflake pattern paper that ran across the page, and it was a small pennant, but I really liked the other side of this wood grain pattern paper, and I wanted to center my 3 photos on top of that piece of paper. I'm going to place this across the layout, and this will be this snowflake pattern paper that's shown here. Now at the bottom there is a curvy sticker, and from the crate paper there is a scallop sticker, and it has a candy cane print to it. We're going to add this at the bottom of our stitched piece of cardstock, and I already trimmed it out so that it would fit perfectly across the page. Across the top of the snowflake pattern paper and the cardstock, I'm going to add some of the gold tape. And I just want to make sure that it is the same width as the pattern paper. So I'll mark it with a pen or pencil and then cut it off. And then you can adhere this to your layout. So not just here at the bottom, but we will add some other blinged out items as well. Make sure that it goes across the pattern paper. And we'll leave a little bit of that white stitch showing at the bottom. Now the sketch calls for 3 pictures, and so I did print out 3 photos of my niece, and she is sucking on an ornament in these photos. And instead of placing them on the right, I'm going to center them in the red snowflake pattern paper, and that's how I'm going to alter this sketch a little bit. Now I have used these photos before, and I sometimes will use photos twice. One might be for me, and the second might be for an album I create for my sister, so that she can enjoy these darling photos of her daughter as well. We will center them in the snowflake pattern paper. They are 2.5 by 3 inches tall, just like the sketch calls for. But I'm spreading them a little bit farther apart, and you'll notice that I printed them with a white band around the edge. Then the sketch calls for a cluster of a banner across the top. And so what I did is, with these kits comes a cut file. And the cut file included several snowflake shapes. And what I did is I cut out this particular shape, and then you'll notice that I've machine stitched them down the center. Again, if you don't have a sewing machine, what you could do is you could simply just attach them to the page with some twine and some foam dots. But these are going to be going up here on the top of the layout. I'm going to loosely place them because I want to add some additional items. I really was inspired by the title cluster here, and there are elements in the kit that make this cluster very easily. I'm going to take this green snowflake tag, and I've written journaling on the top, and I'm going to slip it inside this sack, and you want to make sure that the journaling shows. And to do that, I'm going to adhere it to the inside of the sack. If you didn't want to waste this green part of the tag or the Christmas trees part, you can simply cut off and only use the top part of the tag. So if you really want to stretch your supplies, just cut off the portion you're not going to use. Around the back, I'm going to add some of that red baker's twine. Wrap it around a few times and tie it into a bow. You could also use the striped ribbon included in this kit. Scooch it to the top. That dresses it up a little bit. And then I'm going to add some of this white ribbon to the actual tag. And to thread it through the tag, what I'll do is I'll cut a very sharp angle on the ribbon. And then that makes it much easier to thread it through. You could also place it on a needle if you so prefer. And I want to save some of that ribbon for another project later. So tie this ribbon into a bow. I like this ribbon, it's loose and it kind of has a messy, careless look to it, which I really like on a layout. And then we will attach the bag slightly behind this pattern paper. Make sure the elements show, and then we can trim off that extra ribbon as we need to. Again, let's refer to the sketch. They do have a rather large snowflake element here, which made me think of the large die cut snowflakes that come in the kit. So we're going to be using those. And then the title is shown written out here. And rather than use the letter stickers, I'm going to use some die cuts for the title. These came from the Elle Studio collection, both the home and the deck the halls. And we'll first place the home card a little bit askew. So we're creating our own cluster here. And then we'll add the deck the halls right on top, and make sure you can read the home sticker. Now behind this cluster, I'm going to add this snowflake. Add some behind, and then I'm going to add the other one down below, and I'm going to place it just underneath that gold tape. Then to the center of the bottom snowflake, I will add this fun snowflake flare badge, and I usually adhere these with some glue dots. And I simply add a few to the back. Whatever adhesive is strong and works for you will work for this as well. Now I got the idea for this from this fun little circle cluster here. Rather than just have the snowflake floating down here at the bottom, I'm going to add another one of those Elle Studio dies, the die cut shape that says Believe. Now I think we're ready to place the snowflake across the top. And to do that, you'll find the back of your stitching. You can either use glue dots or you can use dot runner adhesive, whatever your favorite adhesive is. And then I'll just work with a few at a time to create that curve. And if you end up having more than you need, you can simply cut off the extra shape. I really liked the look of a stitched shape. And then I left a little bit of the sewing thread on the die cut, the long banner. And you can trim that off or you can leave it. Leave it a little bit messy. Then I want to add a little bit more bling to the side. So I'm going to take some of the gold sequins And down the center of this right photo, this isn't in the sketch, this is just when I start embellishing for fun. I'll add them to the side of the photo. I almost always like to add a little bit of stamping to my layout, so I picked one of the sentiments from the stamping set. I picked the You Melt My Heart, and I'm going to use some red stamping ink, and I'm just going to add a stamp to the bottom of this layout. Go ahead and ink it up, and you will need an acrylic block to do this. I'm going to slightly lift. This is something that you probably want to do first. But it just adds a little bit of whimsy to the bottom of the layout. So here's our original sketch, and here's the completed layout using the winter kit. For more information about Crop and Create Delivered, please visit www.scrapbookandcards.com or www.scrapbookandcardstodaymag.typepad.com.